In a shocking overnight twist, Queen Camilla has lost her royal protection, a move virtually unheard of in modern monarchy. Palace security teams were reportedly stunned by a discovery found during a routine inspection, described internally as unthinkable and outside all known royal protocols. Without warning, her personal guard was withdrawn, access restricted, and a silent lockdown enforced. This isn't speculation. It's unfolding now. What was found? Who ordered it? And most importantly, what does it mean for Camilla's future inside the crown? Palace security shocked. Camilla loses protection. It was a night unlike any other inside Buckingham Palace. Without warning, a classified order was issued to palace security. Queen Camilla's protection detail was to be withdrawn, effective immediately. Officers were told to stand down. Guards who had worked closely with her were reassigned. No explanation was given. No room for debate. Within the palace walls, the atmosphere changed instantly. Whispers spread across corridors. Senior guards exchanged looks of disbelief. In royal circles, revoking protection at this level is considered a last resort, a signal that something serious has occurred. This wasn't a scaled-back review. This was a total security shutdown around the Queen Consort. Officials close to the royal command confirmed the order came after a discovery so severe it was labeled unthinkable by those who saw it first. Emergency protocols were triggered. Guard schedules were changed. Access routes were sealed. Even Camilla's personal residences saw their security presence reduced overnight. Palace insiders were stunned. This wasn't about an external threat. The threat, it seemed, had come from within. And what triggered this unprecedented action would soon shake the monarchy from the inside out, how royal protection normally works. To grasp the gravity of Camilla's situation, one must first understand how royal security operates at its highest level. Protection for senior royals, particularly the Queen Consort, is not just a formality. It's an essential function of the monarchy. Managed by elite officers, primarily from SO14, Royalty and Specialist Protection Branch, these individuals are handpicked, thoroughly vetted, and trained in both personal defense and diplomatic threat management. Their assignment is not just to shield lives, but to preserve the continuity of the institution. This security extends across 24 hours a day, regardless of where the royal is. Whether attending a state banquet, a countryside retreat, or even moving between palaces. It includes armed escorts, encrypted communication, armored transport, and layers of coordination between police, intelligence services, and private units. For someone in Camilla's position, protection is both symbolic and operational. It represents her status, her value, and the trust placed in her as part of the crown. Even minor royals, such as extended family members performing public engagements, receive temporary protection during official appearances. But a queen consort? She receives it unconditionally. That's how it's always been. It's baked into protocol. It doesn't simply disappear, not unless something extraordinary occurs. As one retired palace protection officer explained, the only time you remove protection is when you're protecting the institution from the person themselves. In all modern royal history, there have been no official records of a queen consort losing protection abruptly and without public explanation. Even amid scandals, affairs, controversies, family breakdowns, protection was never touched. That's what makes this moment so critical. When Palace Command stripped Camilla's security without notice, they weren't just reacting. They were sending a signal, one that echoed through every corridor of royal power. This wasn't a symbolic gesture. It was a direct reflection of eroded confidence at the highest levels. So what could have possibly triggered such a rare and irreversible decision? The answer lies in a single unthinkable discovery, one hidden behind closed doors, and now threatening to unravel everything. The discovery that triggered the crisis. It began like any other day, routine checks, standard reviews, quiet halls humming with predictable precision. Palace security teams were conducting a scheduled inspection, a common sweep meant to maintain protocol and ensure nothing unusual had entered restricted areas. But what they found changed everything. Tucked among Queen Camilla's personal belongings, possibly within a secured drawer, a locked communications chest, or a digital cache reserved for high-clearance access, was something that instantly set off alarms. While officials have refused to publicly confirm what it was, insiders describe the item as deeply disturbing and institutionally out of bounds. One seasoned palace security officer said bluntly, "It should never have been in her possession, not under any classification." The object, believed to be either a sensitive document, unauthorized communication, or encrypted material, was buried carefully, not in plain sight, but concealed in a way that raised suspicion of intent. Its presence was not just a violation of etiquette, it was a violation of internal intelligence standards. What made the discovery even more serious was what it suggested. The materials allegedly contained references to state-level matters, possibly names, financial channels, or diplomatic intelligence that did not fall under Camilla's official jurisdiction. Worse yet, there were no signatures, no authorizations, and no logs indicating when it entered her space, or who had approved it. This led investigators to suspect it was placed or stored there off the books, bypassing all known protocol. Security chiefs didn't hesitate. Once the item was reviewed and flagged, they immediately activated Breach Tier 2 procedures, reserved for internal threats with potential constitutional or national consequences. No questions, no approvals, just action. Within minutes, the material was sealed under lock, couriered under armed guard, and removed from Camilla's vicinity. Her digital access was suspended, and communications rerouted away from her immediate team. It was clear. The Queen Consort was no longer being treated like royalty. She was being treated like a liability. That discovery didn't just trigger a scandal. It rewrote the palace's risk assessment protocols overnight. And it led directly to the next step in the unfolding chaos, an emergency order that would strip Camilla of something no royal had ever lost so swiftly: her protection. Immediate security response inside the palace. Within hours of the discovery, Buckingham Palace transformed from symbol to stronghold. The shift wasn't visible on television screens or in public schedules, but inside those ancient walls, a full-blown crisis response was already underway. Emergency security briefings were convened in multiple wings of the palace. Behind layers of security doors, senior protection officers, digital intelligence teams, legal consultants, and royal advisors gathered under direct orders from palace command. Phones were confiscated. All communication was rerouted through internal, encrypted channels. There was no room for leaks. The directive was blunt. Pause all protective movements. Initiate internal lockdown. For Queen Camilla, it meant more than the loss of routine security. It meant her clearance was being frozen in real time. Keypads to secure areas were reset. Digital access revoked. Residential movement flagged. The crisis was escalated directly to royal command, with the situation marked as critical tier, trust protocol breach. That classification hadn't been used since the early fallout of the Diana-era press scandals. Its use now meant only one thing: the monarchy was under internal threat. Inside, shock rooms were activated, secure, soundproofed meeting spaces reserved only for top-tier discussions during national or royal emergencies. Camilla's aides were noticeably excluded. Not even her private secretary was given clearance to attend. Aides familiar with crisis response said it was unprecedented in scope and secrecy. "This isn't just a misstep," said one source. "This feels like they're protecting something or someone." Outside the palace gates, visible tension mounted. Guard formations tightened. Public entrances were scaled back to one. Movement inside the palace slowed. Even couriers delivering routine paperwork were delayed, stopped, or rerouted. Within royal corridors, people spoke in hushed tones. The silence from the palace press office only intensified the unease. No denials, no reassurances, just stillness. And across departments, from communications to finance to protocol, a single question echoed louder than any headline. What exactly had Queen Camilla done to lose the protection of the crown? Because in the House of Windsor, security isn't just about safety, it's about trust, and that trust had just been shattered. Camilla's security detail is reassigned. Overnight, a seismic shift occurred inside the royal household's tightly controlled protection division. Without fanfare, without a formal address, Queen Camilla's personal security team was removed from her service. These were not junior guards or fill-ins. They were seasoned officers who had spent years at her side. Hand-picked professionals, trusted with intimate access to her private residences, travel plans, and daily routines. Now, they were gone, reassigned by direct command from senior palace security, not Camilla's own office. The silence surrounding the decision was deafening. No reassurances were given, no replacements were announced. And critically, no timeline was provided for when or if her full protection would return. Inside the palace, the mood among staff shifted from shock to unease. Veteran aides knew what this meant. A withdrawal of royal protection at this level was virtually unheard of. Not since the most controversial moments in the House of Windsor's modern history had such a drastic move been taken against someone of Camilla's rank. Multiple sources confirmed that guard rotations at her primary residence were reduced significantly. One gate watch was allegedly removed entirely under the cover of night. Security details that once accompanied her to public appearances or quiet countryside retreats were simply missing. A former officer, no longer in her detail but familiar with the protocols, was overheard muttering, "In this world, protection equals power. Without it, you're out." This wasn't just about safety. It was a signal, and a very public one within palace walls. The kind that doesn't need a press release to be understood. Behind the scenes, royal security teams were reportedly instructed to treat Camilla as a neutral zone, not a security threat, but no longer a protected principal under current classification. A rare and symbolic status. Some palace insiders are calling this a quiet demotion in trust. Others are more blunt. A deliberate distancing, they say, ahead of something even bigger. Whatever the reasoning, the takeaway is unmistakable. A boundary was crossed. The system reacted. And Camilla's royal shield is no longer guaranteed. Palace aides warn of a breach of trust. While security teams tightened their grip on the situation, the true alarm was sounding behind closed palace doors, among senior aides and royal advisors who understood the long-term stakes. As whispers turned into classified briefings, those inside the palace began to frame the unfolding drama in one chilling phrase. This is more than a breach of protocol. It's a breach of trust. It wasn't just the discovery itself, it was the implications behind it. Had someone blurred the line between personal gain and public duty? Had the Queen Consort overstepped boundaries that weren't meant to be crossed? Internal memos circulated among key departments, stamped with uncommon phrases like sensitive level protocol and emergency confidential clearance. These designations aren't used lightly, and they reveal that the palace viewed this not as a minor slip, but as a potential turning point in how power and access are managed at the highest level. Aides debated quietly. Was this an unauthorized financial shift? A misuse of institutional authority? Or worse, an intentional move disguised under routine operations? Some aides began re-examining Camilla's recent behavior, noting subtle changes in how certain properties were being managed or how staff files were being rerouted. Others, loyal to long-standing traditions, warned this could tarnish not only her image, but the monarchy's structural integrity. A legal advisory panel was assembled quickly. Their task: determine whether this was simply a breach of royal etiquette, or the early signs of something legally indefensible. Behind the scenes, tensions were palpable. Teams were split. Aides whispered in corners. Confidentiality was at its tightest in years. And yet, amid the pressure, one reality grew louder among senior circles. If trust can be broken here, at this level, then no one is untouchable. Now, all eyes turned toward Camilla's response. Would she deny, explain, retreat? Her next move wouldn't just shape public perception, it would redefine how the royal family protects itself from within. Camilla's camp pushes back. As palace tensions rise by the hour, Camilla's inner circle moves quickly and aggressively. Behind closed doors, her top advisors issue firm, immediate denials, pushing back against what they describe as a gross overreaction by palace security. They insist the situation has been dramatically mischaracterized, claiming it stems from misfiled records, misunderstood procedures, or internal confusion that spiraled out of control. According to insiders, Camilla herself is said to be deeply shaken, but resolute. She hasn't retreated. She hasn't apologized. Those closest to her say she feels blindsided and unfairly exposed. One senior aide reportedly snapped during a private briefing, "She hasn't violated anything. This is political, not procedural." That line has now become a rallying cry inside her camp. Whispers suggest her advisors believe this move was never just about security. They suspect internal rivals are using protocol as a weapon, seizing on ambiguity to undermine Camilla's authority, weaken her standing beside the king, and quietly limit her influence. Legal teams are now scrutinizing every step taken by palace security. Who authorized the withdrawal? Was proper process followed? Were alternative measures considered? Every detail is being documented, not just for defense, but for leverage. And perhaps most revealing of all, a counter-investigation is rumored to be underway, not to dispute what was found, but to trace who leaked the story, how it reached the media, and whether the exposure itself violated palace rules. For Camilla's camp, this moment is no longer about reputation management. It's about survival inside the crown. They believe this crisis could permanently reshape Camilla's role, and they are preparing to fight, quietly but fiercely, to make sure she doesn't lose her place in the royal hierarchy without a battle. Royal family reacts to the fallout. Inside the royal fold, the atmosphere has shifted from quiet tension to measured urgency. The reaction is careful, controlled, but undeniably shaken. King Charles, according to senior palace sources, is grappling with one of the most emotionally complicated challenges of his reign. On one hand, he must uphold the dignity and structure of the monarchy. On the other, he faces the mounting public humiliation of his queen consort, his partner of over 5 decades. Insiders say he has held several private meetings with senior advisors in the last 72 hours. One royal aide described his mood as visibly rattled, but determined to contain the fallout. Meanwhile, Prince William has remained outwardly silent, but beneath that silence is strategy. Palace insiders confirm he's been in constant communication with palace security chiefs and legal teams. As the future king, William understands that every decision made now could shape how the monarchy is viewed for the next generation. He is said to be prioritizing transparency, integrity, and public confidence. His office has reportedly requested full briefings on both the discovery and the procedures that followed. Princess Anne, the ever-dutiful royal enforcer of protocol, has kept a calculated distance. She has made no public statements, and few inside the palace have seen her at internal meetings. But her silence is interpreted by many as deliberate, perhaps a signal of disapproval, or simply of refusal to intervene. According to one aide, Anne never wastes words. But when she's quiet this long, people start listening even harder. Extended members of the royal family, including the Yorks, the Gloucesters, and various lesser-known cousins, have reportedly been advised to avoid public comment or media appearances for the time being. Engagements are being quietly postponed or downsized. Social calendars are suddenly wide open. The entire royal machinery has slowed to a crawl. Behind closed doors, royal advisors are working overtime to coordinate narratives, avoid mixed messaging, and manage internal tension. One veteran courtier captured the moment in just 6 chilling words. The palace is holding its breath. Because this isn't just a scandal, it's a turning point, and no one inside those palace walls knows yet which direction the monarchy will fall. The public and media explode. The moment the news broke that Queen Camilla had been stripped of her royal protection, the global media cycle ignited like wildfire, unstoppable and unforgiving. Front-page headlines screamed across newspapers and tabloids, "Queen Consort stripped of security." What did palace guards find? Is the monarchy hiding something? Royal cover-up in motion? Television networks cleared their schedules for breaking coverage, with royal experts brought in urgently to speculate on the implications. Was it a national security breach? A scandal behind closed doors? Or perhaps an internal power play that had finally reached its tipping point? Meanwhile, online platforms exploded. On social media, millions of users debated the unfolding mystery. Hashtags like #CamillaCrisis, #PalaceLockdown, and #RoyalSecurityBreach trended in over 30 countries. Within the first 24 hours, over 9.4 million posts, shares, and comments had flooded timelines across platforms. The reaction was deeply divided. Some users, especially traditional royal supporters, defended Camilla, calling the move a disgraceful humiliation and blaming internal palace politics. Others saw it differently, accusing the monarchy of secrecy and demanding full transparency and accountability. If she has nothing to hide, one viral post read, "Why strip her protection like a criminal?" Even meme culture joined the frenzy, with parody videos, satire edits, and royal reenactments mocking the situation, adding fuel to an already chaotic fire. International outlets, from CNN to France 24, framed the crisis as one of the most serious public image blows to the royal institution in over a decade. Comparisons were drawn to the fallout of Camillagate, Mexit, and even the Princess Diana era. And still, no official palace statement, no clarification, no timeline for resolution. That silence spoke volumes. And in the absence of facts, speculation became fact in the court of public opinion. Trust, already fragile, wasn't just shaken. It was splintering across generations, continents, and classes. And the question on everyone's mind remained: if the Queen Consort isn't safe inside the palace, who is? The next phase: security reset or deeper crisis. Inside the palace, it's no longer about one discovery. It's about what that discovery unlocked, and whether the royal system itself is prepared to handle the fallout. Within 24 hours of Camilla's protection being revoked, a full procedural audit was quietly launched across all branches of royal security. Every clearance, every digital entry, every archive record is now being reviewed line by line. Guards have been reassigned, surveillance logs are under inspection, and crucially, Camilla's protection remains suspended. There's no timeline for reinstatement, no formal update. Just silence, caution, and speculation. Even those closest to her aren't sure when, or if, she will return to full royal status. Inside the advisory circle, opinions are split. One group insists that restoring her protection swiftly might stabilize public opinion and ease internal panic. But the other camp warns that such a move, without full accountability, would shatter Prince William's credibility and erode the palace's moral authority in the public eye. Meanwhile, senior royals, including Princess Anne and the Duke of Edinburgh, have been briefed on updated containment strategies. Communications teams are developing a long-term response plan, one not just for this scandal, but for any further disclosures that may arise. Because now, with palace trust fractured, the question isn't just what Camilla may have done, it's who else knew and stayed silent. Insiders say King Charles is walking a tightrope. He wants to support his wife, but cannot risk being seen as protecting wrongdoing. For William, this is bigger than family. It's about preserving the monarchy's future. The stakes are climbing. Camilla's absence from recent public events has been noted. Her access to royal intelligence, private documents, and ceremonial privileges has quietly been reduced. Some insiders refer to it as a soft freeze, not a removal, but a slow restriction of influence. Because one thing is now undeniable. If Camilla's security is never restored, this will not be remembered as a single moment of caution. It will be the quiet beginning of a royal shift, one that redraws the lines of power and questions who truly belongs behind palace walls. Camilla's sudden loss of protection is more than a royal security change. It's a signal that something has fractured behind palace walls. For a queen consort to be stripped of state-funded protection isn't just rare, it's unprecedented. The whispers inside Buckingham Palace now speak of protocol breaches, hidden discoveries, and a deeper investigation already underway. The royal family remains silent. The media won't stop asking questions, and the public is left wondering, what was so serious that even Camilla's safety was no longer guaranteed? Was it political, personal, or something the crown simply couldn't risk defending? As the monarchy scrambles to contain the fallout, one thing is certain: Camilla's position has changed, and it may never be the same again. The only question now, will she fight to return, or quietly step back from power? More revelations may be coming. Stay tuned.